Hi, and welcome to Enchantment of Eternity's Game of Thrones Season 6 trailer review and analysis. This video is where I take a close look at the Game of Thrones Season 6 trailer and speculate on what this could mean for Season 6 and the predictions I made for Season 6. If you haven't seen the trailer yet, I'd recommend doing so before watching this video. Also, I have to give you a spoiler warning for the novels and for filming and production leaks for Season 6. If you don't want to know anything about what's already been confirmed through filming leaks of what's going to happen in Season 6, then this video will not be for you. So, just a few days ago, I made a video saying I doubted that we would ever get a Season 6 trailer, and of course, just a couple days later, it drops. This actually happened to me several times in Season 5, so I'm actually glad I said that because it seems like whenever I do, we get a trailer just a couple days later. However, I do think this is likely to be the only full-on trailer we get for Season 6. It has come a lot later than usual, as typically the first trailer drops in January, and we're just getting this now in March, where there's just over a month before Season 6 starts. So I doubt we'll get another trailer after this one, but who knows, obviously I've been wrong before. So there's several ways I could do this, but I decided to just go through the trailer chronologically and analyze each image and what we hear to say what I think of it. So we start the trailer with a nice wide shot of the wall that comes down on Jon Snow being dead, and we hear the voiceover from Davos saying he's dead. So here the show's continuing with their charade that Jon Snow is dead, but that was to be expected as they continue to insist he's dead even though we know full well that he isn't. So next we see Jaime returning to King's Landing in the same Dornish ship that he left on, and we get a couple of shots of him and Cersei crying. Now they look all close in these shots, but I'm sticking to my prediction that the two of them will have a falling out this season. So we get this shot of Davos, who appears to be on a mountain, then a couple of shots of Ramsay and Roose not looking too happy. Now I'm not really going to speculate on what's happening in either of these shots as there's really not enough information. It could be anything. But then we get a shot of a body being burned on an upside down cross in front of an army in the background. So we know from filming leaks that Ramsay hangs a couple of burnt bodies on crosses, but if this is indeed what we're seeing right here, they're actually still burning while they're on the crosses. He's supposed to do this to two characters that are important characters that have been on the show for a while, and he does this in order to demoralize the approaching Stark army that's marching on Winterfell. There's a lot of speculation on who these people are, but you can't really tell from this shot if indeed this is one of them, which it may not be, but it definitely looks like the approaching Stark army in the background, so I say it's a good bet. But during that shot, we got the beginning of Melisandre's voiceover, where she says everything she saw in the flames was a lie, talking about the great battle in the snow. And this goes along with what I was saying, that Melisandre would totally be doubting herself after what happened to Stannis and have a crisis of faith. And I think that's what we're seeing here, but I do think she will regain her faith and realize the visions she saw weren't false, it was just she misinterpreted them. So next we see Jorah and Daario riding off looking for Daenerys, and just like the very clunky foreshadowing in the Season 5 finale, Jorah finds the ring that Daenerys left for him to find, which, as many have pointed out before, is highly improbable, but whatever. We see that Jorah and Daario are on her trail. Next we see Daenerys arriving at Vales Dothrak with a whole group of people. She's still wearing the same raggedy old clothes, so we know from filming leaks that Daenerys will be taken to Vales Dothrak, where a lot of cows will meet to decide what to do with her. And then that leads into the voiceover of the High Sparrows saying, "Every one of us is poor and powerless, and yet we can overthrow an empire." And I believe this is also what he said in the Banner teaser trailer. And this, I think, makes my theory look really good that the Faith Militant will seize control of King's Landing and try to take control over the Seven Kingdoms by the end of the season, because he's talking about overthrowing an empire, and I don't think that he's being metaphorical here. So then we get a shot of a bunch of soldiers gathered on the hill, and you can make out the banners are of the cracking of House Greyjoy, and it does appear to be the Iron Islands. So I think this is possibly the King's Moot, or at the very least could be some people preparing for the King's Moot. So then we cut to a shot of Sansa. Now, I know it's hard to tell from a single shot, but I'd say Sansa looks quite commanding here, like she's going to be in a leadership role, like I suspect. We do see her wearing furs, and she looks to be in relative safety. I think it's fair to say she gets away from the Boltons unharmed, which I'll get more into shortly. And while the shot is on her, they begin a voiceover where Tyrion says, "You're in the great game now, and the great game is terrifying." But some have jumped to conclusions that this means Tyrion will be with Sansa in Season 6, but of course not. No such thing. It's just the interlaying of scenes that the trailers love to do, and in fact they've done it several times throughout this trailer. But what Tyrion is saying, I think, will have significance for Sansa's storyline, as I think she will begin to play the Game of Thrones, so to speak, and try to manipulate political situations. But as for Tyrion himself, I do believe he's speaking to Grey Worm and Missandei when he says that, preparing them for the political games they have to play. But the shot we see of Tyrion is of him in the dark holding a torch. In the next scene, we see a dragon flying. So Mun might try to say that this means he'll free a dragon, but I don't think so. I don't think it means anything. Although it's possible when he's holding the torch, he could be visiting the dragons because he looks a bit freaked out, but could be any number of things. But I don't think he'll free them in either case. The shot of the dragon that we see is in fact Drogon, so I don't think one has anything to do with the other. Now we come to the high point of the trailer where I completely lost my shit. Lancel, leading a group of sparrows, goes up to Cersei and says, "Order your man to step aside or there will be violence." And then they have this awesome shot of Robert Strong / Frankenmountain looking totally badass, and Cersei just goes, "I choose violence." I was literally out of my chair screaming at that. That was so fucking awesome. So what does this mean, though? Does it mean that the Faith Militant will try to apprehend Cersei again and she'll refuse to go? Either way, I think it shows what Cersei's attitude will be like now that she has Robert Strong on her side. She's not going to take shit from anyone. And of course, if Lancel does decide to take him on, obviously he's dead. Now, I wouldn't jump to any conclusions, though, on what this means on whether or not there will be a trial by combat for Cersei. I don't think we get enough information here in this tiny little scene to make that determination either way. So now comes the action-packed part of the trailer, where images tend to go by rather quickly, so I'll try to touch on the important ones. So first two shots we get, first one is a group that appear to be in the Stark armor on a hill preparing for battle. I think that this is Ned, Harlan, and their men during the Tower of Joy flashback. And the other shot I had to pause to see, but it's a Castle Black with a Night's Watchman trying to break a door down. You clearly can see Alistair Thorne standing beside him, and there's the Master Builder guy in the background as well, both of whom were involved in Jon Snow's assassination, but I'll get more into that a bit later. Then we see Tommen striding down the throne room, followed by an entourage of King's Guard, then cut to Cersei doing some striding herself with her own entourage of Sir Robert Strong. But this appears to be a different location and possibly a different scene. Then a cavalry charging at what I assume will be the Battle of the North. Then some ships in the sea during the storm. You can't make out the banners, so I'm just going to assume it's the Ironborn. Then we see Arya being slapped by who I think is the Waif, and this appears to be while she's still blind. It's no shock that she's going to be slapped around while she's blind. Then Littlefinger in the snow. We heard from filming leaks that he'll be up in Winterfell towards the end of the season, so I'd say it's around this time. Marjorie in the cell looking pissed. I say this is towards the beginning of the season. And then we see a guy on horseback torching this other dude alive in the snow. So I got no clue as to who these people are, what's going on, but if I were to guess, I'd say it has something to do with the wildlings and the Night's Watch fighting each other. Then we see archers firing arrows, and if you pause it, you can make out Bolton banners as well as a few other banners. So this is the Bolton army firing at the Battle of the North. Then we see what looks like an explosion at the Royal Palace at Marines. So if I were to guess, I'd say this is part of another attack by the Sons of the Harpy where they try to kill Tyrion, Missandei, and Grey Worm. Then we see Theon in the snow, and if you look behind him, you see a soldier with dogs. So I'll get more into this shortly as it ties into a few other pictures. Then a man whom at first I thought was Theon being baptized by the Iron Islanders, devoting to the drowned god, but on second look, it isn't Theon, it is in fact Euron Greyjoy. Jaime and Cersei kissing, Brienne killing this dude in the snow, which I'll touch more on in a bit later. Melisandre looking into the flames, pretty self-explanatory. The Hall of Faces, Melisandre getting undressed because, well, she has to every season. Someone touching the forehead of Jon Snow's dead body. I don't think this has anything to do with his resurrection. I think that it's just someone mourning. Someone jumping from a balcony in a city. At first I thought this was King's Landing, but the more I think about it, I think that this might be Arya and Braavos. And then we see a shot of the Bolton army with shields clashing with the Stark army at the battle for the North. Now we get these two women making out, and at first I couldn't recognize them. I thought this was just another pointless brothel scene, but I do believe that is Yara Greyjoy on the bottom there, which is interesting because I didn't know she was into women. I wonder if the show is going to make her full-on gay. She isn't in the books as far as I'm aware, but the show could change that, or she could just be fooling around. And now this is interesting. Another time I thought it was Theon at first, but no, it's Euron Greyjoy. And it's interesting because he's standing on a bridge in the rain, and he pulls back his hood as if to reveal his identity. Now, before I was speculating as to whether or not we would see Balon's death on screen, because we know from the official release photos that he will be in season 6. But after seeing this, I now think that this is from the scene where Euron kills him on the bridge. Now, I know in the books it wasn't clear who killed him. There are a lot of theories out there going around, but I think regardless of what happened in the books, I now think that Euron will kill Balon on screen in the show. So then we get the shot of a knight in armor with Targaryen emblem embroidered on his armor, and at first I was confused who the hell this could be, but then of course I realized that this is the flashback to the Tower of Joy as you see the men that he's fighting wearing Stark armor. One of them is probably Ned. Then we see Tormund at the Battle of the North because we know the wildlings will be fighting on the Stark side. Then Margaery reaching out to the High Sparrow. This goes along with the info that she will devote herself to the faith in order to get out of there. And this brief scene of some women doing something. I'll be honest, I have no idea who these people are or what they're doing. Okay, then we see Arya look up sharply with blank eyes, and many might assume that she's warging because she does that sharp head tilt thing, and it could be the case, but it's probably just her being blind. And then we see a shot of the Tyrell army and the King's Guard storming Baelor Sept that we had heard about a while ago, is when Jaime and Mace Tyrell joined forces to try to forcibly get Margaery and Tommen back. And then here's a shot of Sansa running in the woods frantically. So now I want to get into this because there are three clips I think that go together. First was a shot of Theon running from the man with dogs. Then there was a shot of Brienne killing a soldier, and then this shot of Sansa running, as I think that they're all from the same scene. I think it's from the scene I described in my Sansa's prediction video, that Theon and Sansa would be tracked down by Bolton soldiers shortly after their escape, as we see Sansa clearly running and Theon being tracked by dogs. So I think they will be tracked by dogs and caught, but then saved by Brienne, as we see Brienne killing what appears to be a Bolton soldier in the snow. So I do think I got this prediction right, and that's what we're seeing here. Then we see the Dothraki charging. I won't attempt to guess at the context of this. And then we see wildlings charging probably at the Battle of the North. And then the other awesome part of the trailer that completely took my breath away, where Bran is looking around and he turns around and sees the Night King standing right beside him. And it was so awesome. That being said, I don't think Bran is physically there. I mean, obviously not, because he's standing, so it's either a vision or he's warging. Now, I think it may not necessarily be a dream. It could be a quote-unquote real moment with the Night King actually being there, but I don't think Bran is actually there. It's some sort of green sight or warging. And finally, we end the trailer with the scene of Davos standing over Jon Snow's body, where Ghost is curled up beside him, and he says, "I've never been a fighter, apologies for what you're about to see." And then he unsheaths Longclaw and prepares to fight the others. Now, I think this ties into the other shots we got earlier of the Night's Watch trying to break the door down. I would guess that Davos, in conjunction with Melisandre, has taken Jon Snow's body, and the Night's Watch are trying to take it back by force. But Davos is defending it because she knows Melisandre needs it to resurrect him, but that's all just my guess. Maybe the Night's Watchmen are also coming for Ghost to kill him, but I certainly hope not. Either way, I'm pumped. So overall, I'd say the trailer was absolutely amazing. I totally lost my shit when I saw. I've watched it like 50 times now, and probably will watch it another 50 before the day's done. It was one of their better trailers, and yeah, this is what they should be releasing rather than those silly little teasers. Those are all well and good, but this is how you get people really pumped for season 6. And from what I'm seeing online, it's totally done its job. Everyone's totally pumped, and it doesn't even give that much away. So that's it for my analysis of Game of Thrones Season 6 trailer. Because I did this video, I will not be doing my analysis of Sansa's Season 5 storyline that I had promised to do this week. Instead, that's going to be pushed back for another 2 weeks, because next week I'll be talking about the Season 5 Blu-ray bonus features. So make sure you subscribe so you can keep up with all of that. And thanks a lot for watching.